上几次来看的龙比这个好看哦。啊
Guo Guanchang is coming home.
这个它尾巴没那个呀，它还没哦，还没装
Home
起来
for
呀。
Chinese New Year. It's been a 3-hour drive to Dongyang County, southwest of Shanghai. His village has seen enormous change since he left some 15 years ago. This is not the local hotel, but his parents' home. Guo built this new 6-floor house to replace the 2 rooms he grew up in. Guo's 2 sisters help their mother prepare supper. He is the youngest and the only family member to have left the land. His mother remembers the past vividly.
It was hard in the past when Guangchang was little. We suffered a lot. He worked very hard and loved studying. Sometimes after school, when he wanted to read, I told him first to cut weeds for the hungry pigs. That's your job, I said. Back then, his eldest sister carried him to school on her back. We were so poor, we couldn't afford school fees. His 2 sisters gave up their schooling so Guanchang could continue his. Both sisters then went out to work.
The changes in people's lives across China in the past 20 years have been remarkable. Dongyang is no exception.
When I was a child, none of these houses existed. This was a traditional village, surrounded by fields. Growing up in a peasant family teaches you that life isn't easy, and nothing should be taken for granted. You have to work hard for a living. Take my parents, for example. What they really want is quite simple. They never expected to live in a smart house.
Until 5 years ago, the Guo family occupied 2 rooms in this old courtyard home shared with 6 other families. Before 1949, this was the village landlord's home. Guo and his parents have come to decide what to do with what is fast becoming a ruin.
When I was little, our family life was pretty tough. By early spring, we'd often run out of food and needed to ask for rice from neighbors. Mum was wonderful. Her sweet potatoes always kept us from starving. Taste wasn't great, but it was filling.
Guo excelled at school, winning a place at one of China's elite universities, Fudan in Shanghai. He read philosophy. Since graduation, Guo has made a fortune. At 31, he is the embodiment of the optimist's view of China's future. Entrepreneurial, go-ahead, cutting edge. Shanghai was chosen by Deng Xiaoping to be the model for China's future. To get rich is glorious, he said, and that's what China has been doing, growing at an average of 10% a year for the past 20 years. Shanghai's rapid expansion has coincided with Guo's ambitions. He's a keen cyclist. While at university, he cycled right across China from north to south. The company he founded, Fuxing, meaning fortune, has gone from strength to strength since it began in business 5 years ago. Today, its turnover is greater than 300 million US dollars. China's traditional philosophy is deep-rooted in Guo. So much so, he has claimed Confucian values for his corporate ideals.
The philosophy of our company is cultivating ourselves, managing our families, establishing our careers, and helping the whole world. This is very similar to the Confucian doctrine of 2,500 years ago. The main difference is that Confucius said, govern the country and conquer the whole world. Our motto is to establish our careers and help the whole world.
Guo has instilled an almost missionary zeal in his employees, where traditional morality coexists with ruthless business practice.
Confucius proposed these ideals because in his time the country was at war and he wanted to see a prosperous and peaceful China. China has experienced turbulence, war, and many problems over a long period of time. We are now at a stage where we are rebuilding our country. China's economy is still weak, and the Chinese people are working very hard to improve our living conditions.
Fortune was founded while Guo and his 4 partners were studying at Fudan University.
First, we should talk about the overall schedule. We have to make a decision on this. I'll give you my thoughts first, after which you can all have your say.
4 of the 5 partners came, like Guo, from Zhejiang province of peasant stock. The 5th, from Shanghai, became Guo's wife. They started with nothing. Fortune is an entirely private company without any government funding.
We're developing extremely fast. If we don't restructure ourselves, our old structures will restrict development, and we'll have problems. A lot of people have been promoted to positions they can't handle, and they're stuck there. I feel that this problem is very obvious at Fortune.
Fortune is an exceedingly fast-growing company that began with the Shanghai property boom 6 years ago. The directors staked their entire savings on a sales option to a new block of apartments. They were expected to sell 1 apartment a day.
On the first day, we sold 40 apartments. We even had Taiwanese customers. No one thought that the market would be so big.
The money they made provided the seed capital to build their biotechnology business, where their real expertise lay. 3 of the directors are biotechnologists. Academic research was married to Fortune's commercial approach, resulting in massive growth. Fortune is now heading into the next market opportunity, buying up failing state companies.
It's not a problem. Make an appointment using my name. Okay? Go through the chairman of the political consultative group. They know them really well. Who's the bureau chief in charge of this? Invite him to dinner as well.
Guo's horizons now take in the political arena. He's been made a model entrepreneur by the government and been elected to the party's highest political consultative group. His advice is constantly sought on the issue of state enterprises and privatization.
We should try to make the most of the state enterprise resources. This is Shanghai's advantage. We have a good foundation in state enterprises. They shouldn't become burdens. We should energize them and make them more useful. We should develop multi-ownership. We shouldn't only have state ownership. Its weakness is obvious.
The future may look rosy in Shanghai, but China's past still haunts many of its 1.3 billion people. There are huge economic and political problems to be faced. State enterprises are at the core of the problems. They can best be seen here, in Shenyang in the northeast, a city that houses a large number of heavy industries. In the early years of Mao's rule, this province received more state investment than any other. Heroic labor combined with state capital to build the new China. But today, Premier Chu Rongji has given state enterprises 3 years to balance their books and reduce the crippling financial burden on the country. It's May Day, Workers' Day. Model workers being thanked by Shenyang's mayor, Mu Suixing. It is said that Mayor Mu has the most difficult job in China. Young pioneers salute the workers. Of Shenyang's 2 million workforce, 500,000 have now been laid off, and a further 200,000 face imminent redundancy. The city has the largest number of layoffs in China. Redundancies now affect almost half the workers at Shenyang's state industries.
If Shenyang's state enterprises are revived, then the whole of the Northeast will also do well, followed by the whole country. On the other hand, if Shenyang doesn't survive, then neither will the whole country. In Chinese society, the mayor's position is squeezed between the masses below and the leadership above. It's a difficult role. Some say it's like a glass of poisoned wine. You can't refuse it, but if you drink it, then you're bound to die. When I was ordered to become mayor of Shenyang, to be honest, I didn't want to do it. Of course, I had to come. But it's hard to be a mayor in China, because a city's like a big family. It has to make a living and get along. I'm the head of a big family. People call me the father-mother official.
Soon after the establishment of New China in 1949, the socialist dream began, the ideal life from cradle to crematorium. You were born, schooled, worked, lived, and finally retired at your Dangwei, the work unit. It ran creches, schools, and some even had their own universities. Work units ran hospitals, canteens, as well as providing housing. The factories shouldered much of the social infrastructure. Called the Iron Rice Bowl, it was a secure life, Spartan perhaps, but with equality, everyone's job as important as the next. Central government managed production and distribution. The work unit managed the resources to produce the orders. But there was not much incentive.
The term iron rice bowl refers to the old job system. The bowl was iron and couldn't be smashed, so it was a job for life. The major weakness was that the system lacked efficiency. There was no competition. Everybody was equal on the basis of poverty. This made our factories and workers uncompetitive and listless. People just took. There was no motivation or responsibility to improve anything. The system was very negative.
Deng Xiaoping's successful reforms have now led to state enterprises losing a lot of their financial support. The factories have been told to find their own markets and raise their own capital. For many enterprises, the writing was quite literally on the wall. In this case, if the factory thrives, we will be rich and proud. If the factory fails, we will be poor and ashamed. Shenyang's blower factory celebrates their model workers with a wall of achievement. Orders at the factory have dropped by 30%, and they are now considering whether to reduce their workforce by half. Zhang Suochuing is a skilled machinist with 30 years' experience. His son, Jiang Kai, has followed in his footsteps.
I joined the army in 1965 and returned to civilian life here in 1969. At that time, the factory was doing well. Both benefits and profits were good. At that time, being a worker was wonderful. It was when the workers led everything and had the highest status of all professions. Many people wanted to be workers. In the past, the factory worked 3 shifts a day, but now we only have 1 shift. There is less work now than there used to be.
Mr. Zhang's wife was laid off a year ago, and his daughter and son-in-law are also out of work. 1 in 5 at the factory have lost their jobs in the past year.
We felt safe then. As long as you worked, there was food to eat. And for those retired, there were pensions.
Today, people look down on the workers as the lowest profession.
I have been a worker all my life, and I can't be ashamed of myself. In the past, workers were respected.
Unemployment here in Shenyang has assumed epidemic proportions. To reduce the pain, the town has adopted novel ideas to keep the unemployed active. Some are subsidized by selling flour. Others, such as Lu Hongyan, have been given a telephone booth. She shares the income from the calls. Her husband has been unemployed for the past 3 years, a year longer than her.
When I was laid off, I felt lost. It was made worse because my father became seriously ill then. It was like snow and frost arriving together. It was like the whole of the sky had fallen on me. I didn't know how to survive. At first, I worked as a cleaner, and then as a nanny. And later, I polished shoes. While he repaired bikes, I cleaned shoes alongside him. I felt that I'd lost face.
The Lus both worked at the first woolen factory, the area's main textile company. When it collapsed with sizable debts 3 years ago, it was a traumatic event.
My whole family belonged to the first woolen factory.
We have to think about the future. When we're over 60 and we can't work any longer, what shall we do? We can't just sit and wait to die. It's impossible. If I go back to work, it'll be good for us when we retire. We'll have living security and labor insurance.
He's dreaming. He still thinks that his workshop officials value his skill. But in the present climate, he won't go back. Why? Because the factory hasn't a hope. No hope at all.
For those looking for work, advertising their skills, it is little consolation to know that unemployment is bad not only in Shenyang. The phenomenon is countrywide. It is unofficially estimated to be 10%.
The most worrying problem that makes me lose my appetite and sleep is whether or not I can guarantee 750,000 retired workers their full pensions. I also have to solve the problem of re-employing 500,000 laid-off workers. It's not just social stability, it's also our basic aim. People want to work and eat, and it's a disaster if they don't. We have to let so many people go. It's not that we want to, we don't have a choice. If we don't lay them off, all the state enterprises will collapse. We hope that our long-term problems can be solved by this short-lived pain. But it will bring our society new problems, confrontation, and unstable elements.
But will this instability produce a backlash? Already laid-off workers are barricading roads. Will this lead to more widespread disturbances?
Wars? No chance. Revolts and demonstrations? No way. But in the process of such major reform, which will decide the future and fate of China, it's understandable that some instability will occur. Our centralized political system has great advantages when solving problems and conflicts. We can cope with large numbers of laid-off workers and lead them towards reform without having any major upheavals and social chaos. This can only happen in China.
In Shanghai, Guo Guanchang is on the acquisition trail.
Mr. Chen, how are we doing on buying out Linren? Any problem with the price? The sooner the better, because things change fast. On the price, it's important to find out if it's worth it. And from the shareholding, we need to find out how their business is really doing.
Guo is en route to visit a traditional medicine factory he's bought from the state. His purchase has given him a unique view on state enterprises and the 3-year time limit that Premier Zhu Rongji has given them to reform.
The basic problem of state enterprises is ownership. There are no real owners. The state's so big and there are so many companies, nobody really cares for them. But if we combine state and private enterprises, the problems can be solved. If we take over 50% or 60% of a state enterprise, our care and attention will make sure business is good. I thought that the district government was quite polite to us.
Sure, when we paid them tax, they were polite.
And now?
Now we aren't paying tax, they're not so polite.
The market for traditional Chinese medicine is enormous and growing fast, both within China and across the globe. Guo, as usual, has found a gap in the market. These products will complement his biotechnology operation, as well as providing a niche business in the West. He believes his strategy will turn the state company around.
What's the quality of this like?
The quality's good.
We should promote this. Yes, it's also very famous.
It has a long history. Many foreigners ask about it as well.
Therefore, we should expand its market.
But is the market already unbalanced, expanding too quickly?
If we change too rapidly, as the former Soviet Union has, it won't work in China. So what's the best way? We hope that reform can be accelerated, but how fast? I have no idea. The state enterprises are like a big ship with many problems, but also many resources. However, if we don't rescue it quickly, it may soon sink. Fortune is like a speedboat. We're quick. That's why once we unload some of the goods from the big ship, we can develop and make them prosperous.
This is exactly what Fortune did a year ago. They took over a state company, restructured it, and launched themselves onto the Shanghai stock market. They were able to achieve a key ambition: to become the first private company to be listed on the stock market. Their shares have risen 400% since they started trading some 18 months ago, making them one of the 5 most popular traded shares in China. China's signature on world trade agreements will help ensure that the reforms of the state sector will once again move forward. It will also provide badly needed new jobs to reinvigorate the economy with fresh flows of foreign capital. Not before time. Last year saw the flow of foreign investment fall for the first time in a decade. Like many self-made men, Guo hasn't forgotten his roots. In Dongyang County, his old school motto, "Seek the truth, seek the new," could be about him. Like everything else around here, his school has had a facelift. Education provided Guo, like many before him, with his escape from poverty. The present headmaster remembers when Guo first arrived as a bright 15-year-old. He'd done well in the teacher training exams. This would have allowed him to leave the land and move to town, armed with the vital hukou residence permit.
I could jump the Dragon's Gate and achieve success. I would be able to get a secure state job and move to the town.
But you wouldn't have had a chance to go to university.
The risk was enormous. If he failed to get to university, he'd end up back on the land. His parents were furious at him for passing up the secure state job.
So I took a straw mat and several kilos of rice and came to this school on my own.
Guo flourished here and, in return, established a series of scholarships to Fudan University in Shanghai. He knows how important education is in shaping China's future. Headmaster Liu knew Guo well.
Guo was not one of the best students from a traditional education point of view. He had a distinctive personality. In China's feudal society, obedience was required. Students had to listen to teachers, children had to listen to parents, people of a low rank had to listen to those of higher rank. People never paid attention to what they themselves really wanted. Our Chinese tradition always emphasizes the middle way, stability, discouraging creativity and individuality.
Headmaster Liu's views resonate with Guo's.
Why has our country been poor and backward? Because our minds have been closed. In 1919, the May the 4th movement had 2 aims. The first was to save China from ruin, and the second was enlightenment, the opening of people's minds. If you all do something for our country and our society, I'm confident that our nation will become very strong.
Opening minds was not what the imperial examinations tried to achieve. Here in Nanjing, China's old capital, are the remains of rooms dedicated to selecting the governing class through the world's toughest literary tests. Scholars who spent their whole lives taking the examinations could become intellectually fossilized. In the novel Journey to the West, the character Monkey describes examination scholars as having no ears, no eyes, no tongue, no hands, no heart, no blood, and no breath. To the day they die, they do not write 2 original sentences. Rubbings are still made of the names of successful top scholars. For centuries, millions of young men pored over their textbooks, dreaming that their names would one day be celebrated on memorials such as these at the Confucian Temple in Beijing.
Traditionally, a peasant's son like me should study hard to become, as in the imperial days, #1 scholar, to enter the class that managed society, help the emperor rule the empire, and achieve personal success. But traditional intellectuals had a major weakness. They only had one way to act, to serve the country and be faithful to the emperor. As regards their own thoughts and beliefs, they suppressed them all. They killed all individuality and did what they were ordered to, regardless.
Like Guo, today's young Chinese intellectuals have embraced individuality. Fudan in Shanghai, one of China's premier universities, was started almost 100 years ago, following the Enlightenment movement. Students here are the cream of their generation, the hope of today's China. At the base of Chairman Mao, Chang Hui-yang, who received one of Guo's bursaries, debates issues with his roommates.
Chinese education is like a cement mixer. All sorts of stones with sharp points are loaded in, get hit and polished. When they come out, all the rough edges have been polished off.
Having been born after Mao's death, they find the history of that era somewhat perplexing.
Are you so sure that during the Mao Zedong period, people's minds were pure?
At that time, people's thoughts were more unified. People shared the same ideals. It was the time of the communes, and people shared a collective system, the big porridge pot. People worked together, and China was one big family.
I think that unity of thought in the 1950s was important. People had just experienced great chaos.
They absolutely worshipped Chairman Mao. They fought for a single goal. That's why later they were so disillusioned.
The main difference between our parents' generation and us is that we value individual struggle and individuality. Our personalities are more individual than them. Our parents' generation were like ants, and they only lived for one aim.
Today, the aim of most Fudan students is to complete their studies, get out into the world, and make money. These 6 students share a room. They're all studying international finance. They won their places here by being outstanding students. They come from all over China, most of them from peasant backgrounds. Today's Chinese students, like those across the world, are ready to question everything around them, including what they were taught of the tragic events of June 1989.
Our teachers told us how brave the PLO soldiers were. They said that the students were fooled by a few bastards.
They said some people with conspiracies manipulated the students.
They said those bastards tortured the PLA soldiers.
Yeah, I saw it on the
cutting open
television.
their stomachs and exposing their intestines. They were real heroes.
Of course we all believed it. It was on telly, and our teacher's word was like the emperor's orders.
Maybe in 20 or 30 years we'll learn what actually happened.
By then, the government will no longer worry about what people think.
When those who were involved are no longer alive, then I think we'll learn what actually happened.
Discussion, as always, returns to the economy.
If the economy improves, our political system will open up. But if politics gets in the way of economic development, then it'll be overturned.
If political reform is forced to happen because of economic pressures, it will be very painful indeed. The two should go hand in hand. If the party can't live up to people's expectations, it'll be in trouble.
Yeah, the Communist Party needs to keep perfecting itself.
The quality of leaders is very important.
But the old generation will die, and the next generation are bound to be better. We're young, and the 21st century belongs to us. Our views are modern. We take on board all sorts of ideas and make our own judgments.
10 years ago, Guo Guanchang was a student here. Reading philosophy, he wrestled with many of the same issues.
The issues that people care about are whether China should become more democratic, more market-oriented, as well as how to combat corruption. But the problem is how to achieve this. I believe that if a country wants to be more prosperous, democratic, and make people's lives better, change should begin with the economy.
Guo and his colleagues now have their sights on the media for their next move.
I think if and when the country allows, we will want our own newspapers and TV stations. In this way, we can share our ideas and views with many more people.
Until recently, only the state-appointed media have been licensed to print or broadcast. In anticipation of the market opening, Guo has begun publishing and distributing several magazines to get a foot in the door. There are teething problems.
The quality and distribution are still not very good. There's too much rubbish being published. We need to improve the quality. These articles are just empty. There's nothing there. It's okay for news reports, but you're running a magazine. You should have in-depth reports. If the magazine has no values, readers will think, God, is this awful magazine again? They'll just bin it. So all your creativity and hard work will end up in the bin. That's it. End of story. This will be your fate. You'll never succeed.
The state has always controlled the media. This is the Xinhua Printing House, the new China printing press, established by Mao to take the Communist Party's message to the people. It was here that the millions of his little red books were printed. Today they still produce little red books, but of a different sort. Chinese dictionaries. Mao ensured the levers of propaganda were firmly in his control, but he wasn't the first. 2,000 years earlier, the first emperor ordered all books except technical manuals and Qin propaganda burned, and all associated with their writing put to death. In Beijing, the Central Library keeps a collection that the Emperor Qianlong assembled of correct reading. 200 years ago, he attempted to protect his Manchu people from writings that might cast a racial slur. He wrote about one writer whose offense was to have a sneaking loyalty to the earlier Ming dynasty. His books remain an insult to right doctrines and a violation of the principles of loyalty. They must be done away with. Not a volume must escape burning. I am handing down this decree to safeguard the morals and hearts of men. Today, these controls are relaxing. President Chiang has even announced a schedule opening up all forms of media over the next 7 years. This is greeted with a degree of skepticism. The present cutting edge of the media lies largely with television. Here in Chengdu, tonight at 8 is a local current affairs program. In Beijing, China's premier made a well-publicized visit to Focus Point, the country's nationwide current affairs program, and endorsed its role as the public's watchdog. Tonight at 8 saw this as a green light at local level. Their program is groundbreaking, one of only a handful in China. Presenter Guo Yue remembers how different the controls were in the past.
At first, when I worked at the radio station, my job was news reporting. My leader told me that we are the mouthpiece of the party, that we must have a strong sense of responsibility. What we could and couldn't say was very strictly defined, and we couldn't afford to make any political mistakes. In those days, there wasn't much investigative reporting about the wrongs and ills of society. The media wasn't functioning as a watchdog then. But in the 90s, the situation changed completely.
90年代的时候，那么就情况就完全不一样了。你好，观众朋友，欢迎收看《今晚800》节目。随着国家法律部门反腐败力度的加强
Tonight at 8 has been on air nightly for 5 years now. It covers events in and around Sichuan's capital, Chengdu, and has in the past produced some important investigative reporting, notably on corruption. This story resulted in the senior official being fired and jailed for his misdemeanors. Guo Yue heads out to investigate complaints that an entire village has been without electricity for many months.
只要能够给我们用上电来个，大家就说都合理的话，就说最小的一个要求个。如果说你们找了记者，就说闹到时候俺有出钱一点都不给你干。
新闻性比较强。那么像我们这个记者
We are very strong on current affairs. Our program policy is truth, objectivity, and to reflect public opinion. We report what the man in the street can't say directly to the relevant government departments. People really love our program. They trust the media. They think that many problems will be solved once they've been reported by us.
Guo Yue arrives at local government headquarters. The official in charge of housing and development experiences a relatively new phenomenon for China, being made publicly accountable.
Who is responsible for this area? Liuli County?
No, the local development company is.
So what's the relationship between the county and this company?
It belongs to the town office.
So who is in charge of the town office? Is it one of your government departments?
Yes, it's run by my office.
Tonight at 8 aren't afraid to air the grievances they find. The public also feel secure, exposing problems. But it's often a different matter with the authorities. Tonight at 8 is managed by a small team, led by editor Ye Wenlin and producer Mao Yafei.
Sometimes the pressure to stop us is huge, and we are not able to broadcast. So the public never sees our work. In the past, there was too much positive propaganda in journalism. It used to be people at society's base listening to the leaders above. Our program tries to let government hear the needs and anxieties of ordinary people. We are effectively a bridge between those above and those below. We have helped let out the sentiment of the masses. All this helps keep stability.
In China, reporters must have the party spirit. In other words, use their social responsibility to help the country and society. After all, we're the mouthpiece of the party in the government.
The latest, and some say greatest, threat the propaganda authorities face is access to information on the internet. Students at Fudan University are avid net surfers.
Information on the internet has fewer restrictions. It helps us to get to know more about the world. I think it's very important for the media to be free and uncensored. The Chinese government might not want to control the flow of internet information, but if they did, they might not be able to. I think the internet's a good thing for China, for its ideological reform and opening up.
Chinese media, like newspapers, TV and radio, all have limits to their freedom. But the internet is global, and people can see what they can't see with other media. This helps them open their minds. In order to compete with the growth of the internet, I think that the other Chinese media will have to speed up their reform.
I think that the internet contains lots of Western opinions, and these are very different to those in the Chinese media. We don't believe that all the internet tells us is accurate.
Neither do we believe everything published here is true.
Students the world over are idealists. Chinese students are no exception.
I want to change Chinese society. This is my biggest dream. But if I want to improve people's living conditions, it will be easier to achieve if I join the Communist Party.
I don't want to join the party. I've never felt good about it. I'm not very impressed by it.
I adopt a different attitude. I'll wait and see. If I go abroad in the future, I won't join the party. But if I stay in this country, yeah, I'll consider it.
If you stay here, it'd be better to join the party. At any rate, party members get an advantage.
As at Fudan, there are those that believe that the party is the secure road to travel. Here, on the Communist Party's birthday, students at Beijing's Agricultural University enthusiastically embrace the party.
我志愿加入中国共产党。拥护党的纲领。遵守党的章程。履行党员义务。执行党的决定。为共产主义奋斗终身。随时准备为党和人民牺牲一切。
Although party membership is now over 60 million, its role and relevance is being questioned as never before, especially at the grassroots. In the Sichuan countryside, farmers arrive to cast their vote in the village elections. Today, across China, elections are allowing people to have some say. Democracy is slowly growing.
选好乡镇人大代表和乡镇国家机关领导人员，直接关系到管理乡镇国家事务的水平，关系到基层的稳定和发展，关系到国家长治久安和政权的巩固。今天，我们这个村在这里。
Villagers, gathering here to elect your village chief and his committee is an important event in all your political lives.
All those eligible to vote have arrived. The government maintains that countrywide grassroots elections are democracy in action.
Your committee is a grassroots organisation, democratically elected, democratically administrated and democratically supervised.
This is true to a degree. However, all those standing for election here have first been approved by the party.
All of you listen carefully. You are all masters of this village. Take this election seriously and vote properly in this solemn ballot. After you get the ballot papers, fill them in carefully and properly.
Although half these villagers can't read or write, they can vote, with a little help from their friends. Sichuan's governor, Song Ba-rei, sees no future for multi-party democracy.
In China, without the leadership of the Communist Party, there'll be huge upheavals and chaos. We won't practice multi-party politics here. If we follow Western politics, we'll have problems. If China's in a state of total disorder, heaven knows what will happen. Most capable people are already within the party, and we have many years of experience, not just 1 or 2 days. If the Communist Party disappears, the whole of China would be in complete chaos.
这个移民史，它涉及到的
Order and chaos have followed one another throughout Chinese history. At Fudan University, historian Professor Ge has made a study of the rise and fall of dynasties.
Simply speaking, history repeats itself. But it's a shame that the change of dynasties that should have brought improvements during our history didn't significantly advance our society. All dynasties had similar historical cycles. At first they were prosperous, politics was uncorrupted, and people's living standards were quite high. Lives were stable. Then rulers became corrupt. Sometimes there were internal struggles or foreign invasions. Dynasties would then collapse and be replaced by another. There was no exception to this cycle. That's why there's a Chinese saying, after a long period of disunity, there'll be unity. This will be followed once again by disunity. In considering China today, where will it go? Move to disintegration or continue in its unification?
China is a country where ideological gymnastics have married Marx with the market. Delivering prosperity is now the measure of the party's legitimacy. As the pace of change increases, can China's leaders hold on to the reins of power as it moves from the state and the party to the market itself? In Beijing, the party's junior section, the Youth League, make their annual Top Achievement Awards. Guo Guancheng is there. There is a long history of entrepreneurs working with the government in China. Although not a party member himself, he understands more than most the importance of working with the party.
If our company wants to secure more business opportunities and protect ourselves, we should become more politically involved. We should take part in government activities, such as the consultative committee, as I do. This definitely brings us advantages. After all, most resources are still in government hands, such as share trading. Furthermore, if you want to buy out state companies, you need to be assessed and approved by the government. So, if the government trusts you, it will definitely help your business.
It's Chinese New Year, the traditional time for family celebration. Wishes for riches, harmony, respect, loyalty, and long life are given. In Dongyang County, Guo Guancheng's neighbors turn out in force to join in the celebrations. This year it's special. It's Guancheng's mother's 70th birthday, an important landmark in Chinese family life. There is a traditional belief in China. If a tree is taller than others in the forest, it'll be damaged by wind. Guo was recently chosen to meet President Clinton. Does his high profile concern him?
There's a Chinese saying, the gun aims at the bird which sticks its head out. If you're too ostentatious while others are not, people will stare at you, because you're different. If you have a dream and want to fly, it doesn't matter if you're shot dead, because you will be content to have flown. But if you don't even try to fly, your whole life will be pointless. This isn't my personality at all. All life has risks attached. The question is how to reduce the risk. For me, whatever risks there are, I want to fly.
At the beginning of the new millennium, there are as many questions as answers about China's future. China's future lies with her children. After more than 2,000 years of continuous civilization, this generation is experiencing unprecedented change. What kind of values will they embrace? China's culture is changing as East meets West, as traditional medicine combines with Western techniques. Confidence has returned after 2 centuries of humiliation. Will Chinese communism strengthen in the new market era or be ruined by it? Can this generation see in a new era and rebuild an economy that dominated the world for so much of the past 2 millennia? Do they have the inventive spark their ancestors had that changed the world? Will the Chinese win the war with nature and feed themselves as population pressures increase? This generation is now opening up to the world. Will they follow others into democracy? Or will the Middle Kingdom continue its centuries of strong, centralized control? Does China have to escape from its past in order to have a future? Or can it use the past to build its future? There is only one certainty. What these children do will change all our lives.